What if the exact same underlying mathematics that are used to generate like 120 beat per minute club track could also predict your next heart attack,
Yeah.
or even prevent a catastrophic collapse in the global supply
I
chain?
mean, it sounds like a glitch in the matrix, right?
Hmm.
Or at least a massive oversimplification of how the world actually works. Because we are so conditioned to treat our biology and our culture and geopolitics as completely isolated domains,
Right.
they're supposed to obey totally different laws.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is going to completely dismantle that conditioning. We have this really fascinating digest of AI news from July 27, 2026, and our mission today is to show you how artificial intelligence has, well, it stopped being a simple tool.
Yeah, it's something entirely different now.
Exactly. It has become this massive predictive force that scales across basically every layer of human existence. We are looking at a common thread connecting your cells, your playlists, and international trade.
So, okay, let's unpack this because we're starting with the mechanism that makes all of this possible. Right, the pattern recognition.
Right, but on a scale that completely defies human biology.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how we even define invisible patterns in the first place. Because, human beings are incredible pattern recognition machines.
Yeah.
We really are. But we have strict cognitive limits.
We can only hold so much in our heads at once.
Exactly. We can hold maybe, 7 variables in our working memory at one time.
Something like that, yeah.
So if a pattern requires cross-referencing 3 million variables simultaneously just to see the basic shape of the connection,
That pattern is practically invisible to us.
right, they might as well not exist.
Hmm.
But modern AI operates in that high-dimensional space. It's seeing correlations that are just way too vast or too subtle for human brain to ever perceive.
So let's bring that abstract math down to like the most visceral, personal level possible, which is your own physical body.
The medical application.
Right. The digest leads with this massive breakthrough in how AI is being applied to patient care and diagnostics. Researchers have deployed a system that predicts the likelihood of you developing specific diseases, and it does this by analyzing a totally wild convergence of your genetics, your lifestyle data from wearables, and your complete medical history.
And the mechanism here, it's a total inversion of modern medicine.
Yeah.
Because for the last century, going to the doctor has been inherently reactive.
Very much so.
You experience a symptom, a pain, maybe fatigue, a persistent cough, and then you seek medical attention. The doctor acts as like a detective arriving at a crime scene.
Yeah, the crime has already happened.
Exactly. They look at the evidence, they run some labs, and they try to piece together what damage has already occurred in your body.
And I mean, anyone listening has probably had that classic experience of, sitting in a sterile waiting room for an hour, reading some 5-year-old magazine.
Oh, always a 5-year-old magazine.
Right, just to have a doctor finally look at a chart and say, well, your blood pressure is high, let's try to manage that. It's entirely built on responding to a fire that has already started burning.
But this new AI framework abandons that detective model entirely. I think a better way to understand the mechanism is to look at modern weather forecasting.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, a meteorologist predicting a hurricane doesn't just look out the window to see if it's raining.
Right. They'd be a pretty bad meteorologist if they did.
Exactly. They look at ocean surface temperatures thousands of miles away. They look at barometric pressure anomalies, high-altitude wind shear. They are looking at these really distant variables that are currently harmless, but will converge into a storm next Tuesday.
Ah, so instead of a doctor playing detective after a crime has been committed, it's like a security system preventing the break-in before it even happens.
Yes, the AI is treating your body exactly like that global weather system.
So it looks at, I don't know, a specific genetic marker you've had since birth.
Yeah, and it cross-references that with, say, microfluctuations in your sleep data from your smartwatch over the last 3 years. And then it combines that with a slightly elevated liver enzyme from a blood test you took a decade ago.
Wow. And none of those data points individually would trigger a human doctor to diagnose anything, right?
Not a chance. They would be completely dismissed as statistical noise.
Just normal fluctuations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the AI, because it's processing millions of similar patient profiles, maps those isolated data points and it sees the impeccable pattern.
Because it can hold 3 million variables in its head.
Right. So it recognizes that this specific combination of genetics, sleep disruption, and historical enzyme levels has, say, a 94% correlation with the onset of type 2 diabetes within 5 years.
It is literally seeing the shadow of the disease before the disease physically manifests. I mean, the source material notes this system has proven highly accurate in predicting the onset of conditions like diabetes and heart disease.
And the ultimate goal the researchers point to is delivering tailored health advice and interventions long before you ever feel a single symptom.
That is, I mean, how does that shift the fundamental human experience of going to the doctor? It changes it from reactive to proactive, sure, but it feels even bigger than that.
It is. The implications for the healthcare system are just staggering. Because intervening before symptoms appear means you are fundamentally altering the timeline of human decay.
Wow.
You're removing the need for bypass surgeries or decades of insulin management, chronic pain treatment. The economic and logistical burden of healthcare totally shifts. It goes from a desperate attempt to patch up the sick to a highly optimized maintenance schedule for the healthy.
It totally redefines what early diagnosis even means.
Completely.
But okay, mapping the physical biology of our bodies is still dealing with hard, quantifiable metrics, right?
Yeah.
Like blood sugar, heart rate, genomic sequences. That is all very tangible data. But humans aren't just flesh and bone. We are emotional, irrational, highly creative beings. So what happens when we point this pattern-matching supercomputer at something totally subjective?
Well, the underlying mathematics of pattern recognition, they don't actually care if the data is a liver enzyme or a sound wave.
Really?
Yeah, the digest transitions into the creative arts, specifically looking at how algorithms are moving from just passive tools into active collaborators in the music industry.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And I have to push back on this on a fundamental level because I hear the phrase AI music collaborator, and my immediate reaction is just no.
You don't like it?
Not at all. Because art and music are like the ultimate expressions of the human soul. They are the translation of our pain, our joy, our lived experiences into sound. Having a machine suggest a melody or break a creative block for you, I mean, it feels like automating the soul right out of the art.
I get
Is this just an advanced synthesizer, or are we literally surrendering the human element of creativity?
The defensiveness is completely understandable, honestly. It feels very personal. But we have to look at how the AI actually parses the music.
Okay.
The machine does not have a soul, obviously. It doesn't feel pain and has no concept of joy.
Right.
What it possesses is a profoundly mathematical understanding of acoustic psychology. It basically maps the acoustic triggers of human emotion.
Wait, so it's just analyzing the frequencies. Like, it's looking at why a minor chord progression at a slow tempo triggers a melancholic response in a human brain.
That's part of it, yes. But it goes much deeper than just tempo and key.
How so?
The AI has essentially processed the entire digitized history of recorded music. And it maps these compositions into this massive multi-dimensional embedding space.
Okay, my brain is already hurting a little bit.
Think of it like this. It understands the complex, contrapuntal math of a Bach cello suite, and it understands the syncopated rhythm of a funk bass line, and the specific sonic texture of a 1980s analog synthesizer.
It just sees all those as pattern.
Exactly. In fact, the digest highlights this one specific project where a popular music producer actually teamed up with an AI to release an album.
Oh, I read about this. They blended classical compositions with electronic beats, right?
Yeah, and the outcome was described as a soundscape that is both completely familiar and totally groundbreaking.
But how does that collaboration actually function in the studio? Like, does the producer just type a prompt and go make a sandwich while the album renders?
No, no. If we connect this to the bigger picture of how the technology is designed to function, it is built to augment human intent, not replace it.
Okay.
The human producer still provides the vision, the taste, and the emotional core of the piece. So imagine that producer sitting in the studio at 3 in the morning.
Bleary-eyed, lots of coffee.
Exactly. And they have this phenomenal electronic drum groove and a dark, brooding bass line, but they are totally stuck on how to bridge that into a lighter, more melodic chorus.
A classic creative block.
Right. So instead of banging their head against a MIDI keyboard for 3 weeks, they brought the AI into the session.
Just feed it the groove.
Yeah. The AI analyzes the mathematical structure of that specific groove and instantly offers, say, 50 different complex harmonizations.
Wow, 50.
And might suggest bringing in a string arrangement that borrows counterpoint techniques from 18th century classical music, but transposed to perfectly fit the modern electronic context.
Things the producer would never have thought of.
Exactly. It offers a musical pathway that a human brain, which, let's face it, tends to follow familiar creative ruts, might never ever conceive of.
I see. So the artist is still the curator.
Exactly.
The machine serves up a limitless palette of harmonic possibilities based on those invisible patterns of music theory, but the human has to actually listen to those 50 options and say, that one, that melody right there makes me feel something.
Bingo. The AI provides the math, but the human provides the resonance.
Okay, I actually really like that. It allows a musician to explore entirely new sonic territories without having to spend 20 years studying classical orchestration.
Right. The source explicitly frames this as a collaboration that pushes the boundaries of what a single artist can achieve. It's not a replacement of the artist's voice at all. It is a massive amplification of their musical vocabulary.
It's a really compelling framing, I have to admit. So, okay, we've seen how this technology operates on a deeply personal level in healthcare, preserving our physical bodies,
Yeah.
and on a highly subjective level in the arts, expanding our creative output. Let's take this exact same mechanism, processing unfathomable amounts of data to find invisible connections, and scale it up to the absolute highest stakes imaginable.
You're talking about the global chessboard.
The global chessboard. The digest concludes by examining AI's integration into international relations, global economics, and governmental policymaking. So what does this all mean, like for an average citizen?
Means everything.
Because it sounds like playing a game of global chess, but one player has a computer that can see 50 moves ahead based on real-time market data. We are talking about scaling from an individual's biology to the behavior of 8 billion people.
Yeah, and human civilization at a global scale is the ultimate complex system. The variables are virtually infinite.
Like what?
I mean, shipping lane traffic, agricultural yields in South America, currency fluctuations in Asia, real-time social media sentiment in Europe, energy grid outputs, diplomatic cables. It's endless.
And historically, governments just rely on human experts for that.
Right. Intelligence agencies and policymakers rely on committees of human experts to synthesize all this disjointed information and recommend a course of action.
But the limitation there is obviously the human speed limit.
Exactly.
By the time a committee gathers all the data on, say, a subtle drought, writes a comprehensive report on how that will impact global wheat supplies, and finally hands that report to a policymaker.
The market has already reacted.
Right. The crisis has evolved. It's basically the reactive doctor problem all over again, just applied to planetary economics.
That's a great way to look at it. The core advantage the digest emphasizes here is processing data at unprecedented speeds. These AI systems operate in real time, mapping nonlinear variables.
Because humans are notoriously bad at understanding exponential network effects.
We really are. We struggle to see how, for example, a minor labor strike at a specific port in one hemisphere will create a microchip bottleneck that ultimately crashes the currency value of a nation in a totally different hemisphere.
But the AI does exactly what it did with the patient's blood work.
Right. It sees the distant, seemingly unrelated variables, finds the invisible pattern connecting them, and predicts the storm.
So a policymaker can actually anticipate an economic shift before it causes a domestic recession.
Or respond to an international crisis before it spirals into an actual kinetic conflict.
Which sounds amazing on paper, but I have to imagine it's incredibly risky.
Oh, absolutely. And this raises an important question, which the digest dedicates significant attention to: the complications of using AI in governmental decision-making.
Right, because we need to remain totally impartial here when discussing this. This isn't about one government or one political side doing it better than another.
Exactly. It's a structural issue. When you introduce algorithms into policymaking, you immediately run into severe vulnerabilities regarding data security and ethical accountability, regardless of who is in charge.
Let's break down the mechanics of those vulnerabilities. Because if a nation is relying on a machine to dictate its economic or foreign policy, the integrity of the data that machine is eating basically becomes the single most critical point of failure.
Yes. An AI model is utterly dependent on its training and operational data. So let's look at a hypothetical scenario involving data poison.
Data poisoning. Okay, walk me through that.
Imagine a government uses an AI to optimize its agricultural subsidies and tariffs.
Right.
If a rival nation-state manages to infiltrate the sensors and reporting databases that feed that AI, they don't even have to shut the system down.
They just have to mess with the numbers.
Exactly. They just subtly alter the data over a period of months.
They essentially feed the system a hallucination.
Yes. They artificially inflate the reported soil moisture levels, or maybe manipulate the global commodity pricing data coming into the terminal.
Okay, so then what does the AI do?
Well, the AI, processing this poison data, recognizes a pattern that doesn't actually exist in the real world. So it advises the government to, let's say, slash agricultural subsidies and impose heavy tariffs on imported fertilizer, because it's predicting a massive domestic surplus based on that fake data.
Oh, wow. And the policymakers, trusting the machine's unprecedented accuracy, they just implement the policy.
And 6 months later, the country faces a catastrophic food shortage and an economic crisis.
That is terrifying. Hacking the data literally hacks the government's policy.
Exactly. The adversary didn't fire a single shot. They didn't deploy a single soldier. They just weaponized the AI's pattern recognition against its own creators.
So securing the data pipeline becomes the ultimate matter of national security.
Without a doubt. But beyond the security threat, there is also the profound structural problem of ethics and accountability in AI governance.
The black box problem.
Yes. Modern deep learning models, particularly the ones analyzing billions of geopolitical data points, they operate as a black box.
Meaning we don't really know how they reach their conclusions.
Right. The neural networks have so many hidden layers of weights and biases that the pathway from the input data to the final recommendation is just completely opaque.
Meaning the AI can say, raise interest rates by 2% tomorrow to avert a market collapse, but it cannot show its work in a way that a human economist can fully verify.
Exactly. And in a democratic system, or honestly any system of accountable governance, a policymaker must justify their decisions to the public.
Right. If a human imposes a sanction or cuts a social program, they have a rationale.
A rationale that can be debated, criticized, and ultimately judged by the electorate. But you cannot interrogate an algorithm.
You can't put a neural network on the witness stand.
You really can't. You can't put it on trial if its recommended economic intervention inadvertently destroys the livelihoods of a specific demographic.
And there's also the reality that historical data is inherently flawed.
Oh, deeply flawed.
If an AI is trained on decades of economic data that reflects historical biases, it might just recognize those biases and optimal patterns.
Exactly. It could recommend policies that mathematically make sense to the machine, but practically they just perpetuate historical inequalities.
All while hiding behind this shield of objective mathematics.
Right. So the integration of AI into global politics requires a massive structural leap of faith.
It really does.
The nations that can process the most data the fastest will undeniably hold a geopolitical advantage. But the challenge the digest outlines is how to leverage that unprecedented analytical speed while maintaining a human in the loop.
Making sure that policy decisions are ultimately governed by human values and accountability rather than just cold, hard optimization.
Precisely.
It is incredibly clarifying to view this technology not as a series of different tools, but as one fundamental capability applied to different scales of reality.
That's the real takeaway here.
We are watching the exact same mathematical principles decode the microscopic biology of our cells to keep us alive, map the acoustic frequencies of our emotions to help us create, and analyze the chaos of human civilization to guide global policy.
We're essentially moving from a reactive civilization to a predictive civilization.
Yeah.
Whether it's anticipating the trajectory of a disease, anticipating the harmonic resolution of a song, or anticipating a shift in global supply chains, the impact of decoding these invisible patterns is fundamentally reshaping how humans interact with the future.
And according to the digest, we are only at the very beginning of this integration.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Which leaves me with a thought that I really want you, the listener, to mull over as you go about your day. We are rapidly building a world where the machine always has a data-backed answer. It can show you the mathematically optimal path for your health, your art, and your society. In a future where artificial intelligence becomes the ultimate predictive tool, how will human intuition adapt? When the data can see 50 moves ahead, what happens to the value of just following your gut? Does intuition become an obsolete relic of our evolutionary past, or does it become the most uniquely valuable thing we have left?
That's the real question. The data can reveal the invisible patterns of the universe, but humanity still has to decide what those patterns mean.
Something to chew on today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the data around you, and we'll catch you next time.